A Swift Kick in the Ass, episode 38.
All big changes start with a swift kick in the ass. Join the journey of lifelong friends, John Curren and Tom Stewart, as they make conventional thought. Bend over and take a boot to the keister. Warning, listeners may notice a force equal to or greater than needed to get your ass moving. A swift kick in the ass, living life on your terms.
Welcome, I'm Tom Stewart, and I'm joined with my lifelong childhood friend, John Curren. And today, on A Swift Kick in the Ass, this is going to be a fun one. To porn or not to porn? That is the question. Hey, John.
Hey, Tom. You know, that is the question, isn't it? To porn or not to porn?
Yes.
Being born and raised in South Florida, we were born in a state where it's just full of, half naked, tanned, beautiful bodies, where of course we're going to look at beautiful women. And objectify them. I think we probably learned that at a very, very early age, that we liked women. We liked to look at them, and that was fun. I don't consider that I treat women as objects or trophies or voyeurism or any of the negative effects that pornography has on people. But I can certainly admit that I grew up in that environment, and I saw women as objects when I was young. I remember when we had the fort, and
Yeah.
there was a local newspaper that was just it just showed up on the lawn.
The Hollywood Sun.
Yeah, the Hollywood Sun, and it always had a picture of a girl in a bikini. And I remember cutting that out, and hanging it up in the fort. I don't remember how old we were, but 8 years old, maybe something like that, or looking at the Sears catalogs, in the bra section. We were curious about women and curious about sex, and I think that I turned into a normal, healthy man. And I have a beautiful wife and beautiful children and a beautiful family. And I don't see where that, turned me into a pervert.
Well, the question is, and it didn't just stay with looking at, a girl in a swimsuit, it's really how it progresses and goes through something where you need a different kind of stimuli in order to, find your next high. And
yeah,
I think, the thing is, is porn good or bad? I know a lot of bad things about it, but I know there's some good things about it too. And I'm not here to, slander anyone for that uses it. And I'm also not going to say, I'm wave by flag and say porn is the best thing since sliced bread. Because I definitely have seen its effects. I've felt their effects. And, that's why we're talking about this. This is going to be a show that we open up and talk about some of our own struggles with porn. And I think that's in order to motivate and help other people that might be struggling themselves. Because in the end, this show is about personal change. And if you're wrapped up in pornography, sometimes that can keep you from being really growing to be who you really should be. Right?
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you, in that regards. This is a very sensitive, hot button topic. And on the Swift Kick in the Ass, we like to push the envelope. We like to offer thought-provoking discussion and really make you think about these different subjects.
No, I want you to hear this clip. This is a very important clip about what we were just talking about the escalation, where you start with the swimsuits and you progress into harder elements. I think you'll find this very very educational, and it will help you understand what exactly we're talking about.
Hey, Quagmire, what do you got there?
It's the new Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Check it out.
Those swimsuit issues don't excite me like they used to. I've been spoiled by internet porn.
It's true.
We're joking, but it's true. That's we're not the only ones that are thinking this.
Yeah, I mean, this seems to be on everybody's mind but not a lot of people seem to really have open discussions about it. And I think that is one of the best ways to, you know, to overcome it. Bring it out in the open, especially if you think that you have a problem with it. Now, I knew a guy back in Atlanta, not going to mention any names. He had a beautiful fiance and he was addicted to porn. And that impacted his relationship with her. I mean, he could not have sex with his fiance. Now we're talking premarital sex, so I know some people are clicking off, but you know, this is an open, honest discussion about it, and it impacted him. His beautiful fiance did not, you know, excite him enough, and he was addicted and had some serious problems with it. It's
And right now, that's not going to happen to everyone. You know, I mean,
right.
we were talking about this earlier, and it was almost like when you're drinking beer, right? Some people can drink beer on the weekends or whenever, you know, off and on, and it's just drinking a beer. It's no big deal. But there's some people that can't put it down. There's some people that have to wake up in the morning and they have to have their beer, or they're going to be edgy all day. You know,
Right.
it bridges into alcoholism, and it's the same with pornography. You know,
Same
some
with
people can look
drugs.
at it and not
Same
think
with
anything
food.
about it, might not touch it for a year or two or a couple months or whatever it might be, you know. But then there's other people that can't live without it. They're at work, they're doing it. You know, anywhere they can, they're neglecting other, you know, family responsibilities, or they're trying to find time. And what happens is with any addiction, they become isolated. And when you isolate yourself, you fall further into your addiction, and that's where problems really begin.
Yeah, you know, I totally agree with you. Not everyone who drinks beer becomes an alcoholic, but the question then becomes: do we try to control that? And who tries to control that? Is this a government responsibility? Is this the moral majority? Or is this a personal decision? There was an author of a book. Her name is Sally Tisdale, and I read this in a very, you know, in a pornography statistics report. I think that's somewhat kind of funny, but it's through Covenant Eyes. And what Miss Tisdale says is, I take this personally, the effort to repress material I enjoy, to tell me how wrong it is for me to enjoy it. Anti-pornography legislation is directed at me as a user, as a writer. They look down on me and shake a finger. Bad girl, mustn't touch. That branch of feminism tells me my very thoughts are bad. Pornography tells me the opposite, that none of my thoughts are bad, that anything goes. And I agree with what you're saying, Tom. There's a healthy part of it, and there's an unhealthy aspect. And who decide? You know, how do you make that decision? To say you're addicted or not addicted, or you're totally healthy and natural. You know, I've seen my fair share of porn. I'm not going to lie, but I'm by no means any addict, and I don't see where it has turned me into a voyeur, or look at women as only objects, or try to, you know, uphold women as some type of trophy, or even define my own manhood. That's not the case for me, but I know that that is the case for others. You know, porn is, let's just face it, sex sells, and sex is everywhere in our society, just from, you know, commercials on TV, you know, you know, showing women as objects. I mean, the romance is taken out of it, and it becomes something, you know,
You know, it's even more prevalent now. I mean, when we were kids, yeah, we might have had, you know, we would walk down the alleyway and maybe occasionally find like a Playboy, or if we really scored big, we hit a Hustler, right? That
Oh yeah.
someone had thrown down an alley, and we're like, cool, right? But now, I mean, you could search the wrong word in Google, and you know, you're on some site that the kids, you know, I mean, it's scary. I mean, your kids can find all kinds of things that they really shouldn't be looking at, but they find it, you know, and it's prevalent. And like you said, if you're trying to abstain from pornography, it's difficult. I mean, everything, like you said, this you can be driving down the street and there's a suggestive billboard. you could be watching a commercial, or you'll hear something about Viagra or what any other kind of commercial that's coming in. It's really hard to escape.
I agree with you. Certainly we aren't kids anymore, but our children are exposed to it. Now we have filters on our internet here at home because I have young children, a 13-year-old, 9-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And when I was looking through some of these statistics about, exposure to porn by young children, it's really quite scary. And we have to be watchful over our children. I think that's our responsibility as parents to do that, because it's so easy for them to get into trouble. And, they say that, when you watch porn, it's not real. It's staged, it's acting, and it's really not the way that sex happens. It kind of warps your perception of reality. And I love this. There was an example that I read on the internet that said, if you were trying to learn how to drive, you wouldn't learn how to drive by watching The Fast and Furious with Vin Diesel, and so the same really applies in watching porn. A lot of people, we don't seem to talk about sex in our society today, especially with our children. It's a taboo subject. But where else are you going to learn it? And, after all those years, watching porn, I didn't know that I was just a little bit bigger than average. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's true. It can make people self-conscious about how they feel, men and women, about their body types. And they also put emphasis on the physical appearance, and relationships are so much more than that. And I think, the same way as you have, girls that are bulimics because they want to be so skinny to be like the cover models on the magazines that they read. Same thing with pornography. Now you have people that are getting implants, in all men and women in all different places where they shouldn't be. And some of them have even cost their lives, because if it's a silicone implant and it leaks out, or they go to a doctor that's, not properly licensed, which happens down here in Miami. Several times it's happened. And, and the thing is like you said, it ends up treating people like objects, men and women. And I was listening to another show, and they were talking about they were interviewing a woman, and she says she can always tell when a guy is an avid porn watcher just by the way that when they're sleeping together, the different positions that he throws her in. And she's like, "What are you doing now? Why are you turning me this way?" And it takes it from the act of something, connecting emotionally and physically to just a pure, playing out, going through the scenario into different positions.
Yeah, I agree. I think it sets some false expectations of what what it is like to have sex, and it certainly takes the meaning out of it. And if you look at statistics, here, according to the Journal of Adolescent Health, we'll go back to younger kids looking at it or being exposed to pornography. It gives them an exaggerated perception of sexual activity in society. Think back in middle school, it just took off like wildfire. So many lies and people talking about, what this girl or what this guy did. And how it wasn't necessarily true, but those labels can stick and then cause real damage to the people in the future.
Right. And now you have sexting, and you have all kinds of different ways to to exploit someone. There's guys hiding cameras in closets, and putting pictures of ex-girlfriends up, and it's so it
said that
there's another facet too, which there's legitimate porn, right? Porn industry where they're licensed, they use models that are over 18, but there's also another sex trade that's cropping up, that's human trafficking. And I know that plays a lot into some of the underground porn, and they're snatching girls from, war torn countries. And it's even happened where they've snatched girls from America. And, it's scary. Both of you and I have daughters.
It
And
is
the
scary.
last thing you want is some scumbag, eyeing your daughter and thinking, hey, she'd be great in my porn movie.
Yeah, there's a statistic here. It says that 4% of all 12-year-olds have sent a sext.
Hmm.
And 7% of all 14 to 17-year-olds. And it really just keeps on going up to, when you're between 18 and 24, 19% have sent a sex. And then receiving them is about the same percentages. It's just technology, I think, is a part of our lives as well. If we don't keep tabs on our children and look through their texts, and they could really get into a lot of trouble. My daughter, who's 9 years old, was she had downloaded or I guess maybe it was on her iPhone, Snapchat, and my wife read about how, what that actually was, and she said, going to take that off. But before that happened, my daughter was telling me about, this person kind of reached out to her, tried to friend her. She said no. And the guy started like cussing her out. I mean, she tried to cover up the camera. She covered up the camera with duct tape. I thought that was pretty smart. So the guy couldn't see her. And, he was trying to convince her to take that, take it off, take off the duct tape, that is, so he could see her, and she wouldn't do anything. I mean, she wouldn't do that. In fact, I think she said she maybe put a stuffed animal or something in front of it. But, she was 12 years old, I guess, at the time. And that's really scary. Now we have an open, relationship with our daughter. So she's able to come and talk to us about that. And that application got taken off just, instantly. And she's not allowed to have other applications like that, because even the kids her own age are, sending pictures and sexting and all that. And we don't want her exposed to that. It's scary, and you have to watch out for your kids.
It's almost like, when we were younger, it was you'd get the random phone call before caller ID, and you'd get the heavy breathing, right? Or someone that was, making suggestive. My wife used to work in a call center, when we were first married, and she says she'd have people talking to her, and all of a sudden she could tell that, what they were doing on the other end, and then realize that she had to hang up because, they liked she had a very young sounding voice, and you get these, guys starting to breathe heavy. We had one guy when I was in the Air Force, I would travel all the time, and there was this one guy that would call her in the middle of the night at home. Somehow he got the number, and he would not leave her alone. So I finally found the number through caller ID. I guess it was caller ID. And so I made sure that I took the number with me. And next time I was in Korea, I called up during the daytime and made collect calls to the guy all hours of the night. Hopefully it was him and not, his parents or something like that.
Did you heavy breathe?
Oh yeah, I did everything. I made all kinds of phone calls.
Going back to this, so there's abandonment of hope of sexual monogamy. There's a diminished trust between intimate couples that use where pornography is involved, and belief that promiscuity is a natural state. There's belief that abstinence and sexual inactivity is unhealthy. I mean, as I look through this list, from the Journal of Adolescent Health, I can understand why we would not want to expose our children to porn and so forth. But, I don't know if I necessarily agree. I mean, as an adult, I think that I think that sexual activity is healthy, and it's part of being human, and with someone that you care about and love, it's a very beautiful thing, and it's very human.
Okay, well, what happens for the guy or girl that don't have anyone to love and they find their outlet in pornography? Or maybe it's, they have some kind of disability and they can't, I don't know, whatever it might be, maybe it's they can't talk to people or what have you. Could it be a good thing?
Yeah, I know that's really the question that I raised, because as I look through this list, lack of attraction to family and child raising. I don't know. I would think that having sex and does lead to having a family.
And I know
child
that in
raising.
the past when I had girlfriends before I was married, we would watch it together, and it's I didn't think anything wrong of it. She didn't think anything wrong of it, and it kind of just added spice to the relationship.
Yeah, and like we've said before, it is I guess it's a balancing act, but it is is it a gateway drug that can
Yeah.
lead?
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this earlier, just like as they say marijuana is a gateway to harder drugs, is like lighter stuff, like, we were talking about Playboys. Playboy, is that lead to something harder? Do you start reading Hustler? Or like I think of when we were kids, we'd find a Playboy and then, we'd score maybe a Penthouse is a little bit harder edge, but you've got a Hustler, man. Back then it was like, yeah, this is the stuff, and then sometimes there was the other one, which was just articles or something. And then it was like stories. We were like, what is this crap? There's no pictures. Because me and John, when we were.
So we started to read the stories, and then we're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I never read that.
And
I didn't even read comic books. I just looked at the pictures and read the little word bubbles. And I never read the narration on it. But when we were little kids, right? We had the Playboy Club when we were little kids.
Yeah.
My brothers, I'm the youngest of five.
Thanks to
and I
your
have a bunch
brother.
of brothers. So we would steal his Playboys and we'd go look at them and we'd rip them up or hang them up. We had this little table that had like a, fold down leaves on the side. And, we had some.
That was our fort
on it. It was a little fort inside our playroom, in my house. And we had our glow in the dark Godzilla models and Creature from the Black Lagoon. And then we had our hanging up, we had our Playboy centerfold and we called it our Playboy Club. And then we would look at the pictures. I remember the books, we ripped them up for some reason. I don't know, maybe we were trying to hide the evidence. And we throw them all behind this couch that we had in the playroom. And one day, my brother's sitting there, my mom's in the room. I'm with my brother. My brother's 5 years older than me. He goes, yeah, that's like that time. And he's talking to this girl, right? And he goes, my time, my little brother was ripping up Playboy magazines and throwing them behind the couch. And my mom found them. And I'm like, what? I was so embarrassed. I was like, I had no idea. But my mom, I guess she was cool like that, where, she would, I remember when she would be cleaning our room, if we had like a Playboy or something in our dresser drawer, she would clean every other drawer, everything. When you come in, your heart would kind of palpitate. She goes, oh no, mom was in my room. And you open up the drawer and it's like, that one's not touched,
Well, think of how many brothers and sisters you have, Tom.
Yeah.
I think she was educated.
Yeah, I was the youngest of five. So but it escalated from there, did it not? Remember when you got us fake IDs, from your dad owned a print shop. So we printed up fake IDs, and I don't know if it was you or one of my other buddies. We went into a porn store when we were like 14 or 15. I remember that. And the guy called us over and goes, hey, are you old enough to be here? And we pulled out these IDs. He looked at them and they were like really cheaply made. It looked like, we cut it out with a picture with scissors and laminated it. And the guy would look at it and goes, okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was it. Back then you could order fake IDs out of the back of I think they were advertised even in comic books.
I think this is what we said.
For any state.
Pornography store. I was buying pornography.
I remember that because my father had a printing business,
right.
And I kind of lifted some of those cards.
I think they were like college IDs.
But they look so fake.
They were really bad.
I mean, you would actually take out the typewriter and you would type up a name and put a birth date, and it looks so fake, and then get laminate
Right. And that was just like we'd look
I s-
we'd walk in the store, we wouldn't buy anything. We'd just look around, giggle like kids do and walk out. But then the VHS revolution came around, right? And then you could rent movies. And I remember even, a group of me and my friends, I don't know if you were with us or not. There was one place that we would go that would rent them to us, and we weren't 18, and we'd get it and put
You
it
know,
in
th-
the whole top loaded VHS VCR, and we'd sit around and laugh and
things are so different though back then. And I remember down in Florida, there was a drive-through liquor store that would accept, my homemade photo ID. And I mean, you could basically have a note from your mother saying that you could buy beer, and they'd sell it to you. But
Well, I mean,
try that
this is the
today.
home.
That's not going to happen.
Fort Lauderdale's the home of our donuts, where they had a donut shop, and they have some woman in there topless serving you coffee and donuts.
Right.
Oh, and then right across the street, they had something called Dream Girls. Remember, there would be all these girls sitting in the window, almost like you're window shopping, and they're trying to get you to, pay to go back into this back room and dance and then do God knows what else. But
Yeah. I mean, we lived, we lived below the Bible Belt, didn't we?
yeah, the Fort Lauderdale Beach Strip when in its heyday, I mean, all kinds of
Yeah, I
stuff went on there.
mean, a much different time than today. But there is, is this such a serious problem, or is it not?
Well, how's it apply to personal change? This is the thing, and I told you I had a problem like this when I was younger, and the problem is it's very time consuming. And now when you have the internet and high speed internet, there's
It's less time
never
consuming,
ending.
right?
Well, you would think so, but there's a never ending supply of it.
Well, I was thinking it was less time consuming because it was.
Modem is intolerably slow. Hey, what the? Huh, the internet king. Wonder if he can provide faster nudity.
Sorry, there's so many great clips from The Simpsons, but no, really, it's. I was saying like before when our kids play Minecraft, right? The game never ends, so you keep on playing and playing and playing. And I see my son sometimes where it's like, hey, it's bedtime. No, hold on, I need to get to the next spot. And I don't think it's not healthy because you continually. When do you end? When do you just stop it? And how much is too much? And before you know it, man, you look at your clock and a couple hours have gone by. And if that wasn't there, what might have you been doing? Where you might have been focusing some positive energy?
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of people when they're trying to make positive changes in their life, they say, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to fit it in? But they're spending their time one way or the other. I mean, it could be sitting on the couch watching TV. It could be, like you said, watching porn. It could be doing any number of different things. And it does take your time away as well as it takes your thought. There's been plenty of scientific studies that compare pornography to heroin addiction and how it actually rewires the brain. And it's, if you think about it, it's a very simple, stimulus versus and response. You're gaining you're being stimulated, and you have a response from
Right.
it.
You get a hit of dopamine from it. So it is just like using a drug in a way.
And it does. We've talked about this before about how it does warp your sense of reality when you go out and say if you were addicted to porn. The girls that you would date or whoever you're dating, you're going to have misguided expectations of what is involved in that relationship. It's because the only thing that you really know then is virtual. It's not a true relationship. I think
I have to
there's even
say,
a problem with anime.
And I have to say, it did affect when I was younger with some of my girlfriends, and you want to emulate what you saw, and some of them there'd be things that they were like, no, I don't want to do that, and you'd get mad. You'd be like, oh, what do you mean you don't want to do that? Okay, fine, and maybe give them a guilt trip, and it's sad because I can see those things that I did when I was younger, and I regret doing those.
Yeah, there's a in this pornography statistics report. It's it said that there were analysis of 46 different studies published between 1962 and 1995. Seems a little bit dated, and in fact, a lot of these statistics I think can be, it's they're brought forward to prove a point. So I kind of wonder, but this is a big study, comprised a sample of over 12,000 people, and it said that they concluded that pornographic material puts people at risk of developing sexually deviant tendencies, 31% increase in risk, committing sexual offenses, 22% increase in risk, and then accepting rape myths, 31% increase. And what that really means is that they would show them a picture or a video of someone being raped where the woman is actually enjoying it, and they would walk away thinking that it's okay to rape somebody. And in my book, that's never okay.
No.
It's never okay. And that too, this ties into power and control. And in our laws of power episodes, we always talk about how we don't like discussing some of these topics, but we feel we need to be open and honest and bring them forward. So not so that you can play other people, but so that you can protect yourself from being played. And people need to be aware of this and have a better understanding of it, so they can protect themselves and do what's right for them. Not everyone who watches porn is going to do that, but there will be a percentage of people that will. And I'm certainly the farthest person from having government control people. I really highly believe in personal responsibility. And maybe after listening to this, if you think you have a problem, you can seek help, and talk to someone about it, or join a group of other people and recognize that you're
one
not
of those
alone.
places would be they call it SAA, and it's Sex Addicts Anonymous. And it's not specifically for porn. I mean, it's all, you might have a range of individuals within that group, but it's a 12-step program, and that definitely could get you help. Or you hire a counselor. If you're married, and I think you have to talk to your wife about it. I don't think it should ever be a secret. That should be the first person or your husband, because it's porn is, it's not gender specific. Tends to be more guys, but I think you have to share with your significant other, or your pastor, or your rabbi, or whoever else, that your spiritual leader that might be able to help you.
Yeah, no, I agree. They do say that communication, just talking about it with others, is the first step really in the right direction. And it's important. Going back to a study that was done in 2008 of over 560 college students. So these would be people, over age of 18, took this online survey, and 93% of all boys and 62% of all girls said that they were exposed to pornography before the age of 18. So it's everywhere. 14% of the boys and 9% of the girls said that they were exposed to pornography before the age of 13. So it's really never too early to start talking to your kids about this.
And we know that, I mean, from the stories we were just telling, that we had seen it, and it evidently got harder. I remember being in high school, and another one of my friend's brothers had, like really hardcore magazines that you wouldn't see, anywhere else, that wasn't available in Playboy or Hustler at the time. And,
Well,
once you see that stuff, it does progress. I think you're looking for that next step, that little thing that where, we were making a joke with the thing from Family Guy, where it was like, oh, the Sports Illustrated issue, that doesn't matter. That doesn't excite me anymore. And that's internet porn, right? But it's true, because once you start watching a little bit more, you're like, yeah, that's just, a little bit of flesh where maybe back in the old days you would see the girl's ankle and you'd be like all hot and bothered, and then now we're using
Yeah.
bikinis and it's just then it's G-strings. It just progresses.
Yeah, I know I read somewhere too about an article. I'm sure it was on the internet or newspaper somewhere, but it was talking about how media, how just plain media and the beauty of women that's portrayed through media does impact people in their marriages, and in fact, it builds like unfounded expectations that your wife or your spouse, husband or wife, maybe is not good looking enough, because that's all you see out there in the media are good looking people. And let's just face it, not everyone is good looking. And it makes you think, oh, well, maybe there's something better out there for
Right.
you, getting away from a deep, meaningful relationship, which is not based on looks alone. In fact, I remember back when I was single and my sister was telling me, she goes, John, she says, you're not always going to have the sex drive that you have. As you get older, sex is going to become less important. As you get older, your looks are going to fade. So beauty fades. It does not last forever, because what you really need is you need a friend, someone to confide in and someone to share life with you. And I've really kind of kept that close to heart. And, I'm lucky in many regards. I do have a good looking wife, but I don't see her for that. I see her inner beauty. That's why I married her, because, she's a beautiful person. It had nothing to do with.
Okay, so think about this. One of the things that my wife had brought up to me, and this was a long time ago, but I didn't even think about it. Sometimes I would come back with jokes where they'd be, like toilet humor, but it's, or maybe something suggestive, or, grabbing her butt or something like that, and those little things, you don't think it's a big deal, but to them, it makes them feel like an object, or,
Right.
and, to me, I didn't even think about it because, I'm just around that. I was embedded with that kind of stuff around me and in my mind all the time, that I didn't seem like any big deal, but to her, it was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're addicted to porn and you see all these different positions, and the milkman comes over to deliver something, I mean, you never follow the plot.
That's the 1970s porn.
But those expectations are there, and reality is not always like that. But makes you wish that it was. It makes you think, it could make you think that something's really wrong in your relationship because your spouse is not willing.
Okay, now let's think of not even a relationship, just you and porn, right? What happens to someone that is religious, and they're using porn? What happens is they start very, very shameful. They feel shame. And if I don't know if you've ever felt shame, I'm sure you have, but that's one of the worst emotions that you can feel. And they're probably scared. They don't want to talk about it. It's not like, even if like you're using drugs, it's embarrassing. So it's not like you're going to say, yeah, I'm a porn addict, or,
Well, you saw, this was in the news recently on CNN, was about a pastor who was outed through the Ashley Madison website, how the cheaters website.
Mhm.
He was on that list, and he killed himself because he did not want to embarrass his wife or his children. He didn't want to have to explain any of that. I was reading about how he left a note saying that. I mean, it is shame. Shame is a terrible way to feel.
Right, and we're told from little kids. I mean, like you said, we don't talk about sex. We can talk about violence. We can, it's getting a little bit more. It's definitely out there, but it's more prevalent to see violence in America than sex. If you go to Europe, the things that they show on TV, you would think, wow, they're showing a nude woman. Even back when we used to watch Benny Hill. Remember, we were teenagers, and Benny Hill would come on, and I guess they didn't edit it, and there'd be a woman without a top. You wouldn't see that in America. but
Right.
really it's not that big of a thing compared to these, you see someone getting their head blown off and all kinds of daytime
I think
dramas
you
and,
see it much more prevalent now as far as rapes on in movies, and I mean look at all the detective TV out there about sexual crimes edition.
yeah,
What
well,
is it?
yeah, the sex,
CSI. I mean,
exactly.
it's
People
out
on
there,
jail.
and it when you're when you watch TV like that, I mean that's certainly not porn, but it does make you think. It makes you think that maybe this is a lot more prevalent in our society than it actually is. It gives you the it misguides you. Back to the that college student study, I thought it was interesting. It said 83% of boys and 57% of girls have seen group sex online. 69% of boys, 55% of girls have seen same sex intercourse online. 40% boys, 23% of girls have seen sexual bondage online. Bestiality, rape, and sexual violence, and even going down to 15% of the boys saying child pornography.
That's scary.
I mean, that is scary, and that's in 2008. So, imagine how it's so much easier these days. I think because of technology, it's out there. You need to be aware, and
Well, there's a whole underground internet as well. I don't know if it's still in existence. I'm sure it probably is, but like the Silk Road. I don't know if you know about this, where you used to be able to buy drugs online, and pay with you could use like bitcoins and buy heroin from Chicago or something. And they would send it to you, and I think it was the same thing. They probably had access to
yeah.
different sex rings and so forth. And the other thing, I had a coworker that used to go, I believe, on those like sex vacations, and he would go down to like Costa Rica, and find young guys because that's that was his preference, but and that's more prevalent as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's again, there that's not a committed relationship. I mean, it is you could say it's sex, and you know, I think that's in some instances, I mean, if they're two consenting adults and that's their thing, that's their thing. And who am I or anybody else to say that's wrong? If it's between two consenting adults, and it's not hurting anybody, um, they're in that willingly. They're adults. I don't personally have a problem with that. Um, but
But if
that's
it
the
comes into where it's human trafficking, or in some of these other
right.
countries where they're forced to do it, they find boys and girls to become basically sexual
Yeah,
slaves, and then Americans
but
go and partake in their
well,
vices.
there's a demand obviously for it, and until people stop demanding that, as long as there is a demand, that will exist. Pornography has existed since mankind has been around.
Oh yeah, they made statues and cave cave pictures and paintings and
Right. And that's not to excuse it. It's just a fact.
yeah. I
It's
mean, we're
it's
here
been around.
we're here on this planet. Part of our reason for being is to procreate. So it's a very difficult thing to overcome. So if someone is suffering from pornography addiction, um, it's a sexual drive, right? So it's like a overeating. So if you're in Overeaters Anonymous, right, and you're trying to keep from eating food, but yet that's a natural inclination to eat food, right? So it's a
Right.
very hard, it's not like you can just go cold turkey. You can't go cold turkey and just starve to death. You have to moderate. And same thing with sex. Do you stop having sex? Do you become abstinence? Do you just, you know, become
Yeah.
celibate and stop having sex in order to beat your addiction?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly think it's a natural part of life, and you need sex to be healthy in life. It's natural and it's healthy. Can it be used in ways that are not natural and not healthy? Certainly, but that's not everybody. And I think that's really the point that we're trying to make here, and trying to provoke your thought, get you thinking about it, and I hope this has been an interesting discussion, certainly controversial. Appreciate you all listening, to this point, and we would love to hear any feedback that you have, positive or negative. We want to hear from our listeners about this.
Let me just ask you, did you ever see the Seinfeld episode where they all stopped having sex?
Where they were masters of their own domain?
Yeah. I took this clip from it, and it's just because it's funny. Listen.
What is tungsten or wolfram?
We were looking for what is tungsten or wolfram.
Is this a repeat? No. Just lately, I've been thinking a lot clearer. Like this afternoon with this chick in Kiev. I really enjoyed watching a documentary with Louise.
Louise, that's what's doing it. You're no longer preoccupied with sex, so your mind is able to focus.
I just love that episode. But it's true. I mean, that's what I was trying to get at before, where we take it into personal change. If it is something that's holding you back and keeping you from being who you really should be, take a hard look at it and make sure that it's not something that's interfering. If it doesn't interfere, or you don't even look at porn, this is not for you. But there are people that are struggling, and I think it's a very silent battle, that people have. It's the whole thing with feeding the good wolf and the bad wolf. If you're watching pornography, is that feeding the bad wolf or the good wolf? And how's it affect on you spiritually and emotionally? So it's just something to think about.
Yep, absolutely.
So, John, where can they go for more information on this episode?
A swiftkickinass.com.
That's right. We thank you for listening. I'm Tom Stewart.
This is John Curren. Thank you again.
Check out, if you want some action plans from all our episodes, they're going to be loaded up at swiftkickinass.com. Just opt in there. I promise you we won't spam you, and you'll get access to plenty of premium content. Thanks for listening.
Till next time.
Peace.